Eddie Hearn believes that if the fight goes past 4 rounds, Dereck Chisora can beat Deontay Wilder. Now, a few years ago, I would have entertained the possibility that Chisora could beat Wilder. And I think I mentioned it in a video a couple years back. And obviously people at the time are ridiculing and laughing and mocking. Oh, what a load of rubbish. You think Chisora could beat Wilder? You know, idiots. Well, Deontay Wilder, as we've seen in 2 Fury fights now, doesn't handle being swarmed and pressured by somebody who knows what they're doing particularly well, does he? Now, although Dereck Chisora is obviously not as good as Tyson Fury, he is an out-and-out pressure fighter, and Fury's not. He moves his head when he comes forward. And Deontay's pretty rudimentary. Deontay is good with a straight right hand. He's not particularly good with an uppercut. And the uppercut was the shot which was particularly successful for Joseph Parker against Dereck Chisora. Even Tyson Fury was landing nice uppercuts on Dereck Chisora. Not like you can't hit him with a straight right hand, because of course you can. But I just feel like Chisora's quite good at getting underneath straight right hands and whatever. It's more the uppercuts, and even when David Haye fought him, it was a left hook, right? A shot that came across. It's not a shot that came straight and down at him. It's a shot that came across at his jaw. And those kind of shots, I think, give Chisora more issues, more problems. He finds it more difficult to avoid those kind of punches. And there was actually uppercuts as well. If you remember when David Haye fought Chisora, there were several really good David Haye uppercuts that he caught Chisora with coming in. So, yeah, I think a few years ago, I would have given Chisora a realistic chance against Deontay Wilder. Not that I would have necessarily picked him, but I would have given him a realistic chance, at least a 40% chance. Whereas the Dereck Chisora now, to me, he looks more vulnerable. His punch resistance doesn't look like it's as good as it used to be. We don't know where Deontay Wilder is going to be, obviously, because he took a terrible beating from Tyson Fury. 2 fights in a row, actually, where he's taken terrible beatings. How much is that going to take out of him? Psychologically, physically, neurologically? We don't know. But assuming he can get back to what he was in that 3rd Tyson Fury fight, and he's not too much depleted, then I would still pick him to beat Dereck Chisora, probably 70-30. If Dereck Chisora can get past the first 4 rounds, does that give him more of a chance against Wilder? I guess Eddie Hearn is looking at what happened in that 3rd Fury, both number 2 and number 3 Tyson Fury fights, and he's thinking, well, you can wear Deontay Wilder down. And Dereck Chisora, as we know, he can keep going for the whole 12 rounds and keep attacking you. But his punch quality in the Joseph Parker fight wasn't very good after a few rounds. He was pushing his shots. There wasn't really that much on them. In, I want to say, the first 4, there was a lot more power on Dereck Chisora's punches. So I'm not sure whether I would concur with what Eddie Hearn is saying with regards to the longer it goes, the better it is for Chisora, because the longer it goes, the more upright Chisora becomes. And the more upright he becomes and the less he's moving his head, the greater the chance he's going to get caught with that big straight right hand from Deontay Wilder. So, I don't know, maybe Chisora's got more chance early when he's still throwing with power. The kind of shots he knocked out Artur Spilka with, for example, or Carlos Takam, and that was in the mid-rounds against Carlos Takam. If he can land something like that against Deontay Wilder, then maybe he can get the job done. But how many times have you seen Dereck Chisora after the 4th to 5th round really land big shots like that? I know he did against Carlos Takam against the run of play, but might have been a bit of an anomaly. Certainly wasn't producing power like that in the second half of the fight against Joseph Parker either time. Even against Alexander Usyk, the big power was early on in the fight, where he was really putting serious force behind his shots. In the second half against Usyk, the punches didn't have the same mustard on them at all. Even against Dillian Whyte, didn't have the same mustard on the punches the second half of the fight. There was still plenty of work rate, but not the same power behind the shots. So that's my take on what Eddie Hearn said about Chisora being able to beat Deontay Wilder if he goes past 4. Now, obviously, Eddie Hearn works with Chisora. I'm not sure exactly if there's a contract or anything like that, but he works with him. And he doesn't, surely, he might say something different, but he doesn't like Deontay Wilder because of all the stuff Wilder said about him over the years, the whole nonsense when there was the Wilder-Joshua beef, the failed negotiations, multiple failed negotiations. And Eddie Hearn tried to remain professional throughout. He tried not to allow Wilder and that team to drag him down into the gutter, but I'm sure Eddie Hearn kind of revels in Deontay Wilder's, how can I describe it? His fall from grace, if he ever attained grace. But Deontay Wilder's demise, let me put it that way. I'm sure he kind of revels in Deontay Wilder's demise and does like sticking the boot in here and there slyly. He's not the kind of person to do it blatantly, but slyly he does it here and there. And what I'm getting at here is Dereck Chisora beating Deontay Wilder. I think Hearn might be saying that to try and spite Wilder, to try and say to Wilder, I don't really rate you. And he's actually said that in many interviews. I don't rate Wilder. He's not a good boxer and this, that, and the other. I think Eddie Hearn rates Wilder a lot more highly than he makes on. Yeah. But putting him in the same breath as the Dereck Chisoras, I just think, again, it's Eddie Hearn trying to get at Wilder and spite him a little bit, get him back for all the stuff that Wilder said about him. So anyway, despite all that, I think the Chisora of a few years ago, maybe a 40% chance against Wilder. The Chisora of now, 30%, if that. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below.